Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Hello and welcome to Business Lunch. I'm Nisha Podar and with me is Sonia Shanoy. Sonia, good afternoon. And markets have really given up their gains at this point. Take a look at Nifty 50. It's still holding above that 11,000 mark. So that's coming in some sort of a solace. But remember, it's the mid-cap universe that we have been paying a lot of attention to, which is the larger basket of shares which are down 1%. So that particular index to be watched out for. And therefore, the market breadth is also quite weak. So take a look at that and keep an eye out for that one, Sonia.
Yes, but that's okay, right? I mean, we've had a great week so far and some consolidation is not going to hurt anyone. By the end of the week, the index, the Nifty itself is up 2.5% and we've, virtually at those all-time highs. Of course, today is a different story altogether. There's a big crack coming into the mid-cap index. But for the week, if you map the trajectory, then you've seen a lot of stocks deliver great returns. Top of the list is Reliance, up 12.5%. But let's also talk about what's been happening across the global markets because it has largely been a global-led rally. This morning or this afternoon, though, Asian markets had a mixed day of trade. The big outperformer was the Japanese market that ended with gains of almost 2%. Chinese markets were lower, 0.25% each. Meanwhile, the markets in Europe opened higher as trade war fears loom large. However, the big focus will be President Donald Trump, who is in the UK currently, and in a few hours from now, he will be meeting the Prime Minister Theresa May. What's likely on the agenda for the day? CNBC's Hadley Gamble reports from outside Windsor Castle in London. That's all the global action, right? But let's drill it down to the specifics right here in our own markets. The big Fortis deal is finally consummated. The board has approved the binding proposal from IHH Healthcare for an investment of 4,000 crores via the preferential allotment route. IHH, as we know, will make an open offer to shareholders of Fortis Malar. But let's find out what the nitty-gritties of all this were. Nisha, you have been on top of this deal from the beginning. Finally, it's come to an end.
Oh, yes. And it's been a very, very long and treacherous path, I would say, Sonia, because in June last year, we had reported that IHH as well as Fortis Healthcare have really terminated their exclusivity. And now in July in 2018, finally, IHH has won the bid. It's a board which has really given a green nod to IHH's offer, which is a combination of preferential allotment worth 4,000 odd crore rupees. And that will trigger an open offer for the shareholders. What augurs well for this particular bid is clearly the shareholders exit through open offer, and that's what most of the key investors had been asking for. It's Eastbridge Capital, Yes Bank, even Rakesh Jhunjhunwala's firms have a substantial stake, and a lot of other foreign players had bought into this particular counter. Now remember that 170 rupees is the offer price for the deal to be struck, which is a 20% premium to the market price, and the open offer, as they say, is going to be minimum at 170 rupees per share. As per SEBI formula, it is coming around those levels, but we'll have to see how the shareholders really, whether or not they give their nod. It shouldn't be ideally a problem. So that's something to watch out for. The nod coming in from the shareholders of Fortis Healthcare, which is widely held, and they will have to give a majority to go ahead with this particular transaction, Sonia.
Okay, all right. Well, what are analysts making of this deal and how does it impact the stock? It's holding up higher by about 2% odd. Ekta is here to give us more. Ekta?
Okay, well, Sonia, the thing is that the deal, according to analysts, is quite positive because it is quite simple in terms of structure. It is also probably going to lead into softer interest costs by around 300 to 400 basis points. And according to analysts, that, if in case they manage to clear about a couple of issues initially, there could be an EBITDA boost that they could see at about 200 to 300 crores initially for the company. Let's see if that happens, because there are challenges which IHH will face. So, for example, remember that there is the issue of further price controls. There are already price controls which exist on stents, which exists on kneecaps. So there is that issue that maybe it could be extended by the government. Recent cases of overcharging of patients, especially in the NCR region, and the Delhi government has come out with a draft paper to regulate private hospitals. Remember that Fortis, majority of their bed count is actually in that particular Delhi NCR region, and hence they do run a risk in terms of operational viability in case there is a clampdown. IHH is a relatively new player in the Indian market, 1600 odd beds, plus they've entered in terms of standalone operations in 2015. I think we can cut across to the Fortis call, which is underway.
I think this is an occasion in terms of a second milestone for Fortis. The first one being the release of the audited results 10 days ago or so. And as promised, we have gone through the bidding process and have now come to a decision. So clearly, we are now putting Fortis on a path to, I would say, survival, growth, and hopefully prosperity in partnership with IHH in the months and years to come. But let me just dial back for a moment to the call we had, we had with, I think, primarily analysts when we released the unaudited results a couple of weeks back. At that time, I had said that we hope to bring the audited results out very soon. We also said we don't expect the numbers to change, and also in terms of findings, we did not expect anything material to come out. So we got the audited results out last week, Saturday, and as you would have seen from those numbers, the numbers, there were no change. There were no new material findings. The only thing, of course, was as these were the audited results, it included the auditor's report, and the auditor's report predictably contained certain qualifications around some of the decisions that were taken on treasury matters and the controls around it. And so that, in a way, was no surprise. And we had to deal with the outcome of those qualifications as we got into the bidding process. Now, the bidding process itself, if you recall, we had invited the bids to be received, and then we had to extend the date because the audited accounts got delayed in turn. But finally, when we did receive the bids, we had decided, as per the process, that we would wait for the audited results to come out, post which we evaluated the bids. Now, understandably, the bidders had taken stock of the audit report and the qualifications in it. But having said that, the two bidders we had in the fray were fully committed, keen, and very, I would say, interested in making a serious bid for Fortis. And I'm glad that we ran a process till the very end with these two bidders very much competing to become the best bid. As you could see from the press release today, I think the evaluation we put out articulates very clearly the reasons why we chose IHH in terms of both the price per share, which was superior to the other offer, as also in terms of its composite qualities, in terms of addressing the RHT situation, the subsidiary SRL, as well as providing options for the shareholders through an open offer that would come post the preferential allotment. So given all these, given both the total quantum, the simplicity of their proposal, and I would say the relative certainty, and of course the price per share, we had IHH came out as a clear winner. I'd also like to say that, the way we had put out the bidding process, we wanted to make sure that whatever be the outcome, our process would be seen to be very fair, very transparent, with no sort of comment by either the bidders or other stakeholders that the process was anything but. And I'm hoping with the way we've gone through it and we've announced the successful bidder this morning, I hope that would be the takeaway with you as well. Clearly, both IHH and Manipal are very reputed players in the healthcare sector. We would have been delighted with either as partner, but it's just in these things that IHH did come out somewhat superior to the Manipal offer, and we now look forward to working with them and putting the proposals through for shareholder approval, and hopefully post their approval to a very successful strategic relationship. So with that, I'll just pause and maybe hand over to Bhavdeep for comments from his side before we start to take questions.
Thank you very much, Ravi. Thank you, and good afternoon and good morning to all of you. As you've all been following the story for quite some time now, and as Ravi has rightly said, I think over the last 6 weeks, 2 months or so, I think we've made a significant amount of headway with respect to moving this organization forward. I think the one thing that bears worth mentioning is that while we've had a lot of discussion, a lot of conversation, and we've had the opportunity to speak with many of you at different times, that there's been a lot of attention, a lot of focus on the challenges that Fortis has had, and rightfully so. Clearly, the last 12 months have been challenging on multiple fronts, and that's something that we've had to deal with. From my perspective, as I look at it, as I look at the hospitals, as I look at our doctors, as I look at our nurses, I think that there are 2 or 3 important points that I'd like to share. One is that when we look at potential collaboration, working with IHH, I think there's a lot of tremendous synergy here from a medical perspective and from a patient perspective. At the end of the day, the healthcare scenario globally is in a bit of an upheaval. It's in a bit of a mess, whether it's India, obviously what we're speaking about, but quite honestly, it's not that much better anywhere else in the world. I mean, there's challenges globally around healthcare. You have an aging population, you have a disease burden that continues to grow, and you have unsolved issues. And I think that one of the things that this does is it allows for, in working with somebody like IHH, potentially start to address these issues, and I think that's important. I think that from a Fortis perspective, as I just mentioned, we've had some challenges, we've gone through some tough times. I'm very proud of the fact that the organization has held together. I'm very proud of the fact that our doctors and nurses continue to do what they do best, which is take care of our patients. We've continued to maintain an open dialogue. One of the things we've done through this process, you heard Ravi talk about the process and how we've adhered to it, is we've engaged with our doctors. We've engaged with our top senior managers to get their perspective on what's important from a transaction perspective, what's important for the organization going forward, and how do we ensure that we continue to provide the best possible care. So, look, we are certainly pleased with where we are right now in terms of what potential next steps there are. We've had to deal with some of the legacy issues around, again, well publicized at this stage. I don't need to articulate that or go through that anymore. But we've just gotten past the audit. I think this is an important milestone. The next big thing, obviously, is the shareholder vote that will come about in the next few weeks. And post that, hopefully all goes well, and we can get on to the work that our doctors and nurses do in supporting them to ensure that we continue to provide very good quality health care. So it's an important day for us. It's an important milestone for us. We believe, again, it's a key step in the right direction, and we do think that moving forward, there's hopefully better things to come for the organization and for everybody who's here. So thank you very much for your time. I'm going to toss it back to Mr. Ajay Maharaj, and he will facilitate the discussion. From here. So Ajay, over to you, please.
Hi. So you take the questions now, and we can just limit it to 2 questions per people, not more than that.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone phone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question, the first question is from the line of Ajay Sharma from Economic Times. Go ahead.
Right. So thank you very much, first of all, for hosting this call. It actually explains a lot. I'd like to understand from IHH management, what is the strategy from here on? There's been a long bidding war which has now come to an end. A price has been decided. How are you analyzing the asset right now? And in terms of potential, next 2 to 3 years, what is the potential what is the strategy you would take? If you could paint a broad brush picture for us, because widely people want to know what will your strategic roadmap will be. If not the specifics at this stage, at least you can broadly outline the way forward.
So we don't have this call is represented by members of the Fortis leadership team and Mr. Ravi Rajgopal, our chairman. So there's nobody on the call from IHH. Now, having said that, again, for the obvious reasons, from a clinical perspective, from a brand perspective, from a patient care perspective, I think there are lots and lots of synergies there. Quite honestly, the question you've directed is towards IHH, and I think that at some appropriate time, I'm sure you can talk to them, but we do not have anybody on the call right now representing IHH.
Sir, at least, Mr. Bhavdi, sir, at least you can explain to us the dialogue which has had with them, some color on how they would like to go forward from here on.
Well, I think it's the way I'll tell you from a Fortis perspective how we're thinking about it. As I've just mentioned, we've had issues and challenges that we're working on. So the first step for us is putting our business back, So that is the immediate call to action for us. And quite honestly, we're starting to. It's not something that we haven't done, but we're starting to see fruits of our labor with respect to some of the changes that they're starting to implement and the business starting to. So I think we have to do that first. Is put the business back on steady state, put a recovery plan, start implementing that, and get some stability. So that's number one. I think that if you think about what does this mean going forward, look, I think that the IHH organization is an extremely well-respected healthcare provider, one of the largest in the world, the second largest. We see an opportunity here to leverage their expertise, their network resources, and continue to grow Fortis brand. I think that, quite honestly, by virtue of different types of synergy, whether it's operational, whether it's some specific procedures, methodologies that they may have or we have, we think there's an opportunity here to improve margins on both sides, not just on our side, but their side as well. I think because anytime you bring two organizations like this together, I think there's certainly something there to be said for that. I think that we have an opportunity from a diagnostics perspective. The SRL business is a very, very strong brand here, and I think the opportunity to take the SRL brand, and that would be, quite honestly, it's one untapped thing that I think can be quite significant. So I think, look, beyond that, I think when you get this kind of scale, when you get this kind of volume, I think it opens up a huge opportunity from a clinical perspective. If you look at the research and clinical trial space, which is very significant, the amount of work that's being spent, the amount of time, energy, money that's being spent on research and trials, especially when you look at areas like oncology, right? We all know that the world is searching for a cure for cancer. The amount of patients we have, oncology patients, cancer patients that we have, the amount of experience that IHH has, I think we provide a great a platform to start doing some work in that space. So I think there's multiple areas. I would say that, look, like if you brought any two organizations together of size and scale, I think you have the obvious supply chain, financial synergies from a cost perspective, from a procurement perspective. I think you have the obvious ones, manpower perspective. I think in our space, you get some additional things here because there's a clinical component here. And I think the number of patients you can heal, the number of patients you can treat, and the role that you can play in finding new solutions for the disease burden that our country faces, I think becomes quite significant as well. So that's the way I would say it. Certainly, I think it would be a good question to pose to IHH as well, but I think that would be the way that Fortis would look at it.
Sure. Right. So thank you very much for clarifying that, because my first question was not actually for you. So just take a liberty of one quick question. In the morning, we spoke to Mr. Ashok Sheth as well on our channel ET Now. And one of the points which came out of the discussion was that for the last couple of quarters and years, there has been a kind of a cash crunch in the company, and that led to some liquidity requirement was there, and a lot of projects were stuck and were facing delays. Do you think now gradually all those projects will start coming on stream? And if you could say some of the big plans ahead for any of the specific projects which are stuck for the lack of liquidity, which now gets plugged?
Yeah, look, we have had some liquidity issues. That's obviously been well publicized. Having said that, I think that I think you have 2 or 3 types of things that I don't, it's not a function of the fact that we put everything on hold. I think we've been a bit deliberate and we've prioritized what we do. So I don't think it's a complete shutting the valve off. Having said that, we have a hospital in Chennai, Arcot Road, multi-organ transplant center that we will be opening soon by virtue of this. We have a liver transplant center in UP, in Noida, that we're looking to get operationalized fairly quickly. We have the BG Hospital, Banagatta Road Hospital, and we'll be able to do that. But I think in addition to that, things that we've continued to do, we just added less than a year back, we added a new robot in Mohali, a full Da Vinci robot. We did the same thing in Bangalore as well. So we've continued to expand our medical programs, continue to invest in technology and equipment. But look, I think that there is some merit to Dr. Seth's comments, so I concur with that. We will be able to do some things, but I think it's a combination of big things, some small things. And at the end of the day, you keep doing what you need to do to keep your business operationalized. So that will be some examples. But again, yes, I think the point is fair, and we will be able to move forward.
All right, so thank you very much, and good luck going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Pranay Jain from ET Now. Please go ahead. The line is unmuted. Please go ahead with your questions. As there is no response, we move to the next question from the line of Pankaj Poddar from Economic Times. Please go ahead.
Right. Hi, sir. This is Pankaj Poddar from ET Now. I would just like to clarify a few things regarding this entire deal. One of the key reasons to fix this deal was the nature in the way this deal.
Okay, so that is the management of Fortis Healthcare. We're going to keep getting you incremental updates. But as of now, they haven't really given incremental details with regards to the IHH deal. They have spoken about the audited numbers as well as the capex on board. But as you can see, the stock has moved up around 3-odd%. The real people to talk to with this deal now has to be IHH, because they will be the ones who will be coming on board. And what kind of conditions and what kind of strategy they bring on board will be something that we will have to wait and see about. But as of now, these are just minute details which have come out.
Yes, Ekta, and they haven't given any clarity so far on further details of this deal beyond the press release. So we'll wait and watch out for some more details coming in. On Cash Crunch also, there is a lot of clarity that the company needed to give. But just to recap for all our viewers, it's a large transaction that has been struck after 1 whole year of deliberations. It is IHH which has been named as the buyer of Fortis Healthcare by the Fortis Healthcare board. Now remember that it's a combination of preferential allotment of shares worth 4,000 crore rupees to IHH from Fortis, which will trigger an open offer for the shareholders. Now the deal is at 170 rupees per share, which is 20% premium to the last crore's price. Now remember that they have also said that the shareholders will be getting an open offer, a price of 170 rupees per share and not less than that. So we'll need clarity on where it really goes up and whether or not it can be changed, because always remember that the key shareholders like Yes Bank, which has the largest stake, single largest stakeholder in Fortis Healthcare, that had converted the debt into equity at around 180 rupees per share. So whether or not Yes Bank is going to take a hit is to be seen. Now also remember there are other key shareholders like Eastbridge Capital. There is Rakesh Jhunjhunwala's firms also which have invested in many other foreign investors, and we have a whole list of those shareholders. So it's a very diversely held company really, and we'll have to really see whether or not the shareholders really give their nod, because it is important. But of course from the face of it, the stock is now reacting positively after the management commentary coming in. We'll have to wait for more details, and that particular stock as of now about 3%. But remember, if the deal is struck at 170 rupees per share, and that has already been spoken about, the stock is still languishing way below 150 rupees per share. So there's definitely some uncertainty, and the shareholders are not very euphoric about it, Sonia. So that's one thing to watch out for, and there are many details that need to be sought, clarifications that need to be sought from the board as well as the management of Fortis Healthcare.
Okay, for now, let's also listen to some, reactions that we got earlier in the morning. We spoke with Ashok Seth, the chairman of Fortis Health Institute, earlier today, and he says that they are quite confident of providing even better healthcare with the partnership of a big long-term investor coming in. Listen in.
it's welcome because it puts an end to a long period of uncertainty, which was certainly affecting operational issues and morale of all the, say, staff of Fortis Healthcare and especially the doctors. And we are obviously looking at a new era in the healthcare industry with the IHH coming in. We are all glad that we are moving away from short-term investors who may have been in it for financial gains to a long-term investor who probably would partner with the ethos of belief of delivering high-quality healthcare.
Okay, well, that's the word coming in from Ajay Seth. But you know what? Let's focus on the markets as well, because for now, a lot of stocks are moving on the upside. Reliance has hit the 7 lakh crore market cap figure, so that's an important stock to track. Just pull up the intraday chart of Reliance, now up more than 2%, and that has actually moved to the high point. Oil and gas stocks are also surging. In fact, after about 30-40% of a fall that BPCL, IOC and HPCL have seen, this afternoon these stocks are on the upside. But Fortis clearly continues to be the stock top of mind right now, up almost about 3-odd%. So we'll keep tracking that story very closely for you. Ekta, quickly, if you just want to sort of run us through what brokerages have made or what analysts are saying. Of course, we did hear from Fortis themselves that the simplicity of the IHH proposal is something that, you know, caused them to choose IHH eventually. But what have brokerages made?
Well, you know, they are actually quite happy with the simple structure of it and the fact that, you know, the interest cost could probably get a little bit of a boost initially, because there will be that refinancing of the deal which will take place, etc., of the debt which will take place. But again, it's important to you know, point out that the entire industry is fraught with challenges when it comes to the hospital space, like we've been pointing out about price controls, etc. And separately for Fortis, margins are down to around 1.2%. It's a loss-making entity as of Q4 of FY18. So they do have a long road ahead when it comes to macro as well as micro challenges.